So,
I can't believe you're not starting with a Tatum victory lap. I can't believe it.
okay. Well, okay. So there's two things where I don't think about this a lot, but I did think about it with Baker Mayfield. Is that because I'm older and I know I'm talking about younger athletes, I don't like to pick on them. And so I don't think people realize this. I was rooting for Baker Mayfield to eventually grow up and be great. And he has become that. And that makes me actually happy. Fans tend to think that it really bothers me when I'm wrong. You know
That's
me well, and
definitely
it
not
doesn't. You
true.
know this.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my wife said. I think you almost root to be really wrong occasionally. So I think that's not what gets me worked up. The things I think about are being too hard on young people. And I think about this a lot. So Westbrook's, this revelation that Westbrook can shoot threes is I've made sure it makes every show. Baker's emergence. And so here's funny. I defended
After game one.
Tatum. Yeah, and here's what I said. Here's my take. He is so collaborative that he constantly beats people off the dribble. But collaborative Jayson Tatum then pulls back and takes a worse shot because ingrained in this culture, three at all costs. It's ingrained. Danny Ainge, Brad Stevens, it's who they draft, it's who they acquire, it's who they trade for. And so Kobe and Michael would have fought that shit regularly. He doesn't do that. He's a good kid. And so I defended him and I said, I've seen him beat people off the dribble and then pull back and shoot an off balance three. They're in his head. But, so I'm defending him. And then in game two, he infuriated me. Two of his last three shots were fallaways. And so I had to go back and just say today, basically I said, Jalen Brunson is work boots and Jayson Tatum is French leather loafers. If it's drizzly, you're best not to wear them. He's not built. He's not built for really intense, resilient moments. He's not. He literally, when he dunked it with 18 seconds left, you and I had the same reaction. Whoa! We should not have that reaction.
Agreed. So I have there's two things that I want to talk about here. The first one is just a question for you because I don't, and this I think the audience is curious about. Did you, when you did the few months ago, close your eyes and think of Magic, think of Michael, think of LeBron, think of Tatum?
Yeah.
I know your, kind of your process. So I know that I can kind of tell because I've been listening to you my whole adult life, but also because I now know you. I can tell when something is totally off the cuff or if that was like kind of the prepared rant that was then going to go somewhere. So I know you knew what you were going to say. Did you have any idea when you did that? Did you think, "Oh, this is going to stick and resonate"? Because I don't know if you saw it, but yesterday, all over Twitter, when that game ends, people were just sending a screenshot of you with your eyes closed in that segment. And then today, people who I'm pretty sure, I know it because they captioned the tweet with, basically something along the lines of, I don't fucking like this guy, but he nailed this. Like, so that is what, did you have when you finished that or when you did that, did you feel like, oh, okay, everyone's going to get it? Or did it just kind of end up being a happy accident? And then I have a second thing, but I want to know.
Sorry to interrupt this great video, but please remember to like and subscribe. Thank you. Now back to the video. I think that was just a very lucky, happy accident. So, as you know, I write notes
Yep.
down to remind me during a show. I don't do a script, but I yellow. If somebody has a funny line or if I think of something, I'll write it down. So I'm not necessarily sure outside of my opening rant where I have lots of notes. I get really
Yeah.
circle this, The start of my show, I usually have an absolute direction on where I'm going. So I'm not sure. And I never, ever, I have terrible instincts on what pops and what doesn't. All these years, I have no
So
idea. Stuff I think's brilliant,
it is
it's crickets.
so that's kind of what I thought. What I kind of thought was this was planned. Like Colin knew where he was going, but it wasn't like this is gonna cut through everything. But for some reason, not for some reason, I think it's because it was a point that when you did it, a lot of people were like, holy shit, he's right. Like, I don't think, there's nothing I can think of. So there's that. The other point, you and I today, right around the exact same time, it's so funny because I'm doing my podcast for the volume right around the time your show goes on the air. So,
Yeah.
Without knowing what you were going to say, and you obviously without knowing what I was going to say, you and I made a very similar point, which is for the sake of the sport, it's really important the Knicks pull this off.
Absolutely.
Because we are in such a copycat sports world that, and by the way, it will probably be an overreaction. The way the Celtics play is probably the right way to play, and probably so much so that the league just needs to change some rules like baseball did in a lot of different ways to stem the tide. However, I don't think the league is in a hurry to make massive rule changes. And I also think that if the Celtics get clocked by a team that couldn't beat a good team all year, and it's because they averaged 53s a game and just went cold, that a bunch of teams will just get cold feet and be like, screw that. Go down on the block. Let's go get some muscle.
Well,
take some mid-rangers. And the league is more interesting that way.
Okay, so I want to throw something at you. I think you'll really like this. And I talked about this today. I said, why are we seeing so many underdogs win? Home teams lose. Why are there so many upsets? Because of two things. The heavy use of three ball and analytics simultaneously as the NBA decides we're going to make these the most physical playoffs ever. And so what has happened is the finesse teams, the Warriors pre-Jimmy Butler didn't get to the line. The Celtics never get to the line. The finesse teams, the pretty teams, the teams that during a regular season walk into your arena, you're tired, they're not, they're young, deep, and can shoot, blow your doors off. Oklahoma City can do this. And then the league goes, hey, little curveball. It's now pro wrestling. And that rewards the Knicks.
Yeah.
Draymond, Butler, and the Warriors. The T-Wolves against the pretty Lakers.
It almost rewarded the Rockets against the Warriors. They just couldn't score at all.
So the league, this is why I call it manalytics, is baseball. Analytics are great in baseball and basketball for a long season. But in the playoffs, when a baseball manager will use starters out of the pen, suddenly your analytics, when, a few years ago, Justin Verlander's now pitching in the eighth. It's like, okay, that's not really a bullpen. You manage differently in the postseason. And in the NBA, the league has gone, yeah, we're not blowing the whistle. Well, now you're rewarding the less skilled, defensive mind, limited teams like the Warriors without Steph. Steph leaves that Minnesota game. They were just as effective because they just grabbed and pulled and held on. And the Knicks are built for these kind of playoffs. So that's why I always call them analytics. I love analytics. But postseason comes down to, we're not going to blow the whistle. We're going to let things slide. And by the way, that's why Villanova guys, this is why it's so fun. Villanova guys, all play defense, all were in close games. Kentucky had the personnel. Villanova had the soul. Villanova, even when they won national titles, they don't run through the tournament and beat the shit out of people. Right. Kentucky did. Kansas does. So these Villanova players go to 3 to 4 years. They've been playing defense, 3-star guys, get to the NBA, overlooked. Then they go to Tibbs, who's like Jay Wright, defense, practice. So the Knicks are built for a hyper-aggressive playoff format. And the Celtics are still good, but they're flawed with the change of officiating.
So there's a million pieces of that. I want to jump on one, which is the giant sample versus the shorter sample and trusting the math. Because something really interesting, and that you'll find this interesting because you're not a poker player. So one of the things I have found really interesting is a lot of people who clearly don't play poker are making the point that the Celtics are poker players. They're card counters. They're professional gamblers that know, listen, it's 60-40 my way, and I make that bet enough times, I eventually profit. And that does actually apply and work for blackjack, where it is truly just, you have a sample size of infinity if you want it. And you know what, but poker is different because the way the actual best poker players work in a tournament format where there is escalating. So again, I'm going to have to explain a little bit about tournament poker, but I promise it'll be worth it to the audience. Say there's 100 players in a poker tournament. 80 and it costs $1,000 to get into it, so there's $100,000 in the prize pool. The first 85 people eliminated will get $0. Final 15 are the people who get money, and then if it was $100,000 prize pool.
That's how the World Series of poker works, right?
Exactly right. Except the numbers are bigger and it's more people, but it's the difference between tournament poker and a cash game. A cash game is I sit down with a certain amount of money. I can get up whenever I want, up or down, whatever. And then 15th place under this tournament would probably, you'd get $1,500, so you'd profit $500. First place, you get 35 grand. Second place, you get 20. And you know what I mean? It's tiered. But it is really rewards like getting into first or second or third versus just barely getting into the money. Okay, that's how tournament poker works. At the beginning of a poker tournament, a professional player, if they know, all right, I have a 60% chance of winning this hand. The money is, we're both, I can call your all-in pre-flop. I have x-ray vision. I know your cards. I'm a 60-40 favorite. Even though 2 out of 5 times I'm going to lose, it's the beginning of the tournament. I need to get chips. I have to call there. I call, and you take the risk. That's smart. That's the way they will play. If at the final table of that tournament, that professional player looks around and says, I'm the best player here, I have a sizable skill advantage, then that player no longer has any interest in getting involved in 60-40 confrontations, even when they have the 60%, because they know, in the long run, I'll win, but this isn't a long run. This is a sample of 1, and I have a 2 out of 5 chance of losing. I would rather lower the variance, play smaller pots, but it grinds you down to where I'm eventually an 85-15 favorite. So here's why I tell that whole story. The Celtics should be looking at this series like they're the best player at the table, and they have a better option than adding all this variance by bombing threes. They should be saying the last thing we want is a cold shooting night to cost us the game because we're better than you. The team that invented this strategy, the Houston Rockets under Daryl Morey, did it because They were never the better team because they were trying to beat Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, and Klay Thompson. So they said, we want to get into 40, 60 battles, even if we're on the 40, because we're going to win those almost half the time. The Celtics, this is my biggest criticism. They are approaching this series like they can't beat them straight up. They're approaching the series like they need luck in their favor. I wouldn't mind this if this were the first two games of the NBA Finals against Oklahoma City. Because they might look at Oklahoma City and be like, man, they're better than us. So let's shake the snow globe and add some variance to it. The Knicks, they shouldn't have felt that way. And their refusal, and here's the one other thing that I'm going to add to it. There is still an argument, play the way you play for at least the beginning of the game. In both of these games, they've had a 20-point lead late.
Yeah.
That is obviously the moment to be like, hey, it's not a long run, large sample anymore. It's can we play a style of basketball that will give us the best chance to finish these next 15 minutes.
Yes. Be very conservative investors. Yes. Let's pull out tech stocks, buy bonds for the next 8 minutes.
There you go. So that's your version of it. It's the difference between how you are told to invest your retirement when you're 30 versus when you're 62. Like, those are different strategies. And the Celtics approach of being like, we are going to play the fourth quarter of a playoff game the exact style we would play the first quarter of a February game is just, that's not staying true to who you are. That's being ridiculous. That would be as if at the Chiefs at their heyday of when Tyreek was there and everything, when they were just high flying and didn't have a good defense. When they were up 10 in the fourth quarter of a playoff game, they're like, bombs away. This is what we do. That's not smart. That's not staying true to who you are.
That's why when the Miami Dolphins have Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill, that works in September and October. But as the weather gets windy and cold and all the best AFC teams play in lousy weather, what you really need to do, and this is a little bit of a flaw with Mike McDaniels, is what you really need to do is start to change your offense about Thanksgiving, because you're going to have to go to Baltimore, Cincinnati, Kansas City, Buffalo. And so what happens is this is what we do. We throw it downfield. Well, you have a small, modest-armed quarterback, and you're still trying, and then you try to pivot to, no, it's too late. And so it was always funny watching the Dolphins, and I'm like, guys, you're falling in love with September and October football. This stuff works then. The NFL, think about this. Name the last dome dynasty in the NFL. Name the last warm weather dynasty. They don't exist. Marino never won a ring.
Colts won.
Because eventually you become a very warm weather offense. The Chargers with Dan Fouts were electric. No trophy.
This is a sneaky, important thing. And this is just random luck of the moment as far as who's good. Because you're exactly right that the AFC, all the excellent teams are outdoor, shitty weather. So, I think that oddly likely works against the Houston Texans' ability to compete for championships, in that they're not going, unless they get home field advantage throughout a playoffs, they're just not going to be conditioned playing in the AFC South and playing in a dome. The NFC is the opposite, and it is such a unique potential edge Philadelphia has. So if you're the Eagles, and for the time being, now maybe Washington will get great. They were really good last year. And maybe the Giants will get great. Maybe the Bears will get great. Maybe the Packers will get great. So this all can change. But for the time being, for the Eagles' last few years, they have been
Rams, Detroit,
San Francisco, Dallas, whoever wins the South, Tampa. So they are in a spot where if we can get home field, whoever's coming here ain't built for this shit. Right? So, like in the AFC,
Right.
home field matters a little less for the Chiefs, Bills, Ravens, Cincinnati, because it's like, all right, no matter what, this is gonna be a pain in the ass, tough. Like we're all built our teams knowing that. The NFC, it's just how it turned, where the Lions are in a dome and the Rams have, so that can change. But for the time being, it makes it to where for Philadelphia specifically, home field advantage is wildly valuable. Wildly valuable.
Yep.